Hey guys, welcome into the Corked Up podcast. Just an off-season episode. I'm not even going to bother trying to call out this one. You know what? Let's title it this, Frank. Chris Sims is an idiot. And we'll go from there. That'll be the title on YouTube, and we'll get a million clicks because everybody likes to hate him, in my opinion, for good reason. So, as you could probably guess, we're going to talk about Chris Sims. He just released some of his some of his quarterback rankings. For some reason, he does top 40, which is just a weird number in my opinion. But we definitely want to get into that. We also want to talk some Tim Tebow because Frank is pretty fired up about that. And then we're not going to talk NBA playoffs, kind of what's been going on in the series so far. We want to wait till the series are concluded, the first round at the very least, and we'll get Nas back in here hopefully next week where we can ask him some more questions about his thoughts on why exactly the Heat were the Bucks were in trouble with the Miami Heat, because we'll need to get some answers on that. And then we will be talking about the fans of the NBA just fucking losing their minds. Apparently they're back in the real world, and they lose their fucking gourd. So let's get started here, Frank. Chris Sims, top 40 quarterback ranking as of June 1st, which is when we're recording this podcast. Just peek behind the curtain. The list isn't complete yet, right, Frank?
It's not. I think he's doing like a week-by-week thing where he unveils the next quarterback on the list. The latest one that I found, he's on number 36.
So let's just dive right in. Give us from 40 to 36. Where is he at right now? Okay.
So at number 40, he has Cleveland Browns backup quarterback Case Keenum. All right, you're number 40, right? Backup quarterback. I get it. Number 39, Bears quarterback Justin Fields, which is astonishing, and that's really what we're going to dig deep here on before we move on. Number 38, Trey Lance. Number 37, Kellen Mond. And if Justin Fields, Trey Lance, if those two guys weren't surprise enough for anybody listening, number 36 is Las Vegas quarterback Marcus Mariota. So you have two high-end prospects sprinkled in with a backup quarterback and a third-round quarterback. I mean, this is insane. It's nuts. And you know what's funny, Jack, is that I listened to another a podcast, the Bears podcast, and they had Chris Sims on. They're like, oh, we got Chris Sims on. They talk about his rankings. He has Justin Fields at number 39, and I thought it was fantasy. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. He might not start the year, you know what I mean? Like, if Dalton is hot and we're winning, maybe he doesn't even start until midway through or at all. If we're fucking lucky, if Dalton gets us to the playoffs, what? I'm just giving excuses in my mind before I even get there to have some legitimacy to ranking Justin Fields number 39. But when you start digging in, and we did a little bit of homework before today's episode, you start digging into sort of his philosophies, and you hear what he has to say about Justin Fields, along with other prospects from this year. We'll isolate it to this year because he's had some wild takes in the past as well. There's no sort of consistency to how he evaluates or what he thinks about certain quarterbacks. Maybe, Jack off air said maybe he's just a contrarian. I had said maybe he just falls in love with more raw skills versus experience. I don't know what it is. But before I throw it to you, Jack, I did want to read off. These were his rankings for the rookies going into the draft. I think everyone had Trevor Lawrence as the unanimous number one. And for a very long time before the offseason got here, it was 1A Trevor Lawrence, 1B Justin Fields, and that was kind of the end of the conversation. More evaluations came out, whatever happened, and Fields slipped a little bit. His ranking, though, was Zach Wilson number one, which I haven't seen on anybody's board. I haven't seen anyone but Trevor Lawrence. I saw a few people get cheeky and put Justin Fields number one, and were able to back it up with quite a bit of statistics, analytics, and whatever. So his number one is Zach Wilson. His number two was Trevor Lawrence. Here's where it gets fucking wild. Okay, give him Zach Wilson. Maybe this guy is the diamond in the rough, right? The fucking next BYU kid. This is what Jimmer Fredette was supposed to be in the NBA. Number 3 is Mac Jones. Number 4 is Kellen Mond. Number 5 is Justin Fields. And number 6 is Trey Lance. What are we thinking, Jackie?
It's just ridiculous from top to bottom. Like, I won't even give you like maybe Zach will, and you know what? Like I'm not about everyone needs to have the same exact board in terms of Trevor Lawrence has to be number 1, right? Like if you should be able to make that your own opinion. You don't just start where everyone else starts and just go, all right, Trevor Lawrence number 1. Let's see who I like after that. Like, but that tells me that there's an issue with him evaluating quarterbacks to begin with, because I don't know how you watch Trevor Lawrence for 3 seasons at Clemson and watch 3 seasons of Zach Wilson at BYU and go, yeah, Zach, give me Zach Wilson. Give me Zach Wilson who's playing fucking Coastal Carolina, Boise State, San Diego State. Give me all of that over a guy at Clemson who wins national titles, who you see on a national stage. It's the exact same fucking argument and what happened with Deshaun Watson and Mitch Trubisky. Except Deshaun Watson, for whatever reason, wasn't as touted as a prospect as, the next Andrew Luck, even though Deshaun Watson has been a pretty good NFL player. For whatever reason, people just seem to knock him down. Not saying it's anything mischievous or anything like that, but clearly there was something there. And it's funny with the whole, I don't believe in Justin Fields. He's an Ohio State quarterback. They never succeed. Who the fuck was the last BYU quarterback to succeed in the NFL? Like, stop the conversation. Just right there. Enough of that. Justin Fields, for his career, I have it pulled up right now, Frank, so I was ready to go for this. In 579 attempts at Ohio State, Justin Fields completed 396 of those completions for a percentage of 68.4. That's getting it fucking done. All right? Like, That's not a mechanics issue. I don't know what. I listened to what Chris Sims was saying on Twitter. I found some videos. I sent you one of them where he's talking about this and that, and the ball, he does it like this, he does it like this, and then as he's talking, the person who was editing the clip together was showing NFL quarterbacks who do that, because it's not a perfect motion every single fucking time, and falling in love with mechanics is the wrong thing to do. That's not how you evaluate most quarterbacks. Like, you can see if there's flaws there, yes, but unless the mechanics are causing incompletions and high turnovers and just not having the effectiveness at the college level that Justin Fields has, it shouldn't be the be-all, end-all for why you think he's a worse quarterback than Marcus Mariota. Or, hell, not even Marcus Mariota. He has some NFL legs to him. I'll give him maybe that. If you want to make that argument, if you really want to break down, fine. I'm not going to go there with you. But a guy in his own class, Kellen Mond, who did nothing in college and has worse mechanics.
Much
arguably.
Worse. Much worse.
This just, and I'd like to think that even if I wasn't, all in on the Justin Fields train right now, I've got the Justin Fields jersey. I was gonna wear it. It's not ironed yet, Frank. I was gonna wear it for today's podcast, but I'd like to think that even if I wasn't, even if he wasn't on the Bears, I'd still make this argument, because I know what I see, and I don't see those quarterbacks being better than Justin Fields.
So let's make no mistake though, Jack. We're talking about this because we are Bears fans, but I'm not being biased in anything that I said. You guys can rewind, go back to the past episodes after we drafted Justin Fields. I said it on this very podcast. I thought he wasn't making it past 4. I told everybody before that draft, if we don't trade up to 4, we are not getting Justin Fields. I don't care what people are saying. There's no fucking way this guy slips past 4. And there were still grumblings that he may go 3 to San Francisco, that they didn't make up their mind just yet. Mm-hmm. That Mac Jones was never in it came to a point where they said Mac Jones was never in the discussion. It was a smoke screen for whatever. It's between Justin Fields and Trey Lance. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh, well, for sure he's going number 4. It's either going to be Atlanta for the future or someone's going to trade up and get him. That's how strong I was on that kid. I still ranked him higher than Zach Wilson. Like, I still don't see it with Zach Wilson. And so I say that to say, like, yeah, we're talking about it because we're Bears fans. He's on the Bears. I wouldn't be saying anything different if he wasn't a Bear.
Yeah.
This is absurd. Now, it made our radar. It was stronger on our radar because he is a Bear. I mean, that's sort of my point. Is like, we're here talking about it at extensively because of that. But I want to read really quick because to your point with mechanics, first of all, to your point, he's dead wrong on Justin Fields' mechanics. Everything that he described with cocking the ball back, he's describing Kellen Mond and Tim Tebow. They have that awkward javelin sort of almost behind the ear before they throw it.
He has the wind-up throw. Like,
go wind up. You can pause anyone. Now, Aaron Rodgers has probably the fastest release I've ever seen in my life. People say, before our time, that Dan Marino was the guy with the quick release. I was too young to watch him live. But if you pause any quarterback's throwing motion, you're going to get that sort of like this for a half second even. And he kept pausing it there. Look, right here. Everybody does that. You bring it back to have some torque. It starts here, or it starts with the hips, sort of just like a pitcher, and then it ends here. That's your follow through. No one starts it here and just flicks it like this. That's not how you throw a football. That's not how you throw any ball. There has to be something back here where the mechanics start to break down with these quarterbacks. And I don't want to act like I'm some pro, but I played some quarterback in my life. I played quarterback for 7 years, not at the highest level, but I was taught the mechanics of throwing a football. I was taught the mechanics. I was taught how to read very basic. We were young defenses, but so I have some understanding of this. Where you get wrong is where you start. When I talked about torque, is when you start bringing the torque up here, where you're throwing with all arm instead of the torque down here. But there's always going to be a little bit of drag back here to throw the ball. There just has to be. And when he's talking, I'm like, what are you talking about? You're describing Tim Tebow at Florida right now. You're describing Kellen Mond at Texas A&M right now with these weird windups. Justin Fields doesn't have that. The one thing again, I don't want to act like we're biased. He has his faults. He stares his one read down maybe a tad bit too long. Deshaun Watson did that too. So these things can get cleaned up in the pros. These are things that should be minor for a quarterback who studies the game and works hard and can grasp it, which we saw quarterbacks in Chicago not be able to do before. But I think this kid can do that. His feet mechanics can break down when there's pressure. Again, though, pressure boggles everybody. How do you get Patrick Mahomes out of his game and win a Super Bowl against him? You fucking get pressure on him. Quarterbacks want a clean pocket. They want to be able to get to read 1, 2, 3, 4. But let me read. This is what Zach Wilson, this was his breakdown on Zach Wilson. And I'm going to skip some things, so I don't want to read the whole paragraph. My baseline for Zach Wilson is Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. It's an unbelievably quick release. It's the ability to throw the ball any way he wants, sidearm, over the top, jumping in the air, 2 feet off the ground, throwing between a guard and a tackle 25 yards downfield. The arm strength is phenomenal. He can throw the ball 40, 50, 60, 70 yards. I was blown away. That was his takeaway from Zach Wilson. This was his write-up of Justin Fields. He has big talent. There's no doubt about that. He's just very raw. A 2-year starter with all the experience, or is it 3-year? 2 or 3-year starter with all this experience, Justin Fields is a raw prospect, but the BYU kid is not. He's refined. Yeah. He's got everything. He can make all the throws. Yeah. Justin Fields is a real threat. I know people talk about the Clemson game, but I would challenge you to go back and watch that. I know there are some good throws, but there are a handful of throws. There are a handful of throws in which I would expect a high school quarterback to hit them. I believe he's a one-read thrower. If it's not the first read, he's going to run or he's going to panic. And then he breaks into why Ohio State is just bad for his body, are bad for the NFL, and that his body gets locked in, and he's talking about things. So what he essentially has done is say, yes, the kid is talented. I'm going to isolate his best game, or one of them, probably his best game, the 6-touchdown game against Clemson, and say he missed a handful of throws. I've seen Patrick Mahomes miss a handful of throws. We've seen the best quarterbacks in the world miss a handful of throws. And the funny thing is, it sounds like he overanalyzed Justin Fields to a point where he felt the need to bring up bad moments in his best game. He didn't bring up any game footage of Zach Wilson. He said he brought up his physical talents that he probably saw on a pro day, on a practice field. Again, Zach Wilson has the strong arm. I get it. But if you can't draw what you're seeing, what were the 60-yard throws against defenses? Can you reference that for me?
Yeah.
What was the time in which he had to evade pressure? What was the time in which he manipulated the pocket to get to read 2, 3, and 4 that you're saying Justin Fields cannot do? Because I saw that from Justin Fields on film. That one read thing, to me, is a myth from what I saw on film, if I'm being honest with you. I did see it every now and then, but and I don't want to get too far into the weeds here. It's so hard to have that sort of critique on players because Justin Fields runs a 4.4. You know what I mean? Like, I know people have their gripes with Lamar, and we've gone on record saying we think he can make that jump to be a little bit more of a pocket passer to more complement his running. But can you fault Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick if they don't necessarily want to get to the second read because they can fucking blaze past? You know, there has to be some, because if you're saying it's a one read and panic in the pocket and don't know what to do, that's fair criticism. If you're saying it's one read, but then he sees a running lane and he takes that instead, that's not panicking. That's saying, hey, I can make a play with my legs here instead. So it's very, he doesn't seem to have very much consistency in his breakdown of the rookies. And then I sort of looked at the quarterback rankings just from the 40 to 36, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Because Marcus Mariota didn't have the best arm mechanics. That was one of his biggest critiques coming out of college. And yet, after everything that we've seen from him in the NFL, you have him ranked above Trey Lance and Kellen Mond, who he was high on, and Justin Fields. Like, what are we doing here? I don't quite understand what, you know.
Well, and you have to think what other backups are going to be ahead of Justin Fields, Trey Lance. You know, like what other fucking backups are we going to see on this? Are we going to see Gardner Minshew on this list? Is that what we're fucking doing here? Like, I mean,
and he's Frank, another one who has a hitch in his throat.
Yeah, and Frank, I'm looking right now because as you were talking, I was curious, so I went and looked and pulled the Sugar Bowl, which is the Ohio State Clemson game from last year, or excuse me, this year, and I just looked at the box score. So to clarify, he said that there were a handful of throws that Justin Fields missed that he'd expect high school quarterbacks to make.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Justin Fields. Here's his stat line for that game: 22 completions out of 28 attempts, 78% for yards per throw, 13.8. He had 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception for a rating of 257.6, which is a perfect passer rating. Frank,
can you by chance on that stat sheet, and if not, you don't have to look for it, but do they show drops on that stat sheet by chance? Were there any drops of those completions?
Let's see. I don't think it'll show drops.
Okay.
But here's the thing: regardless of drops or not, him saying that there's a handful of throws means that he expected Justin Fields to be perfect. He missed 6 throws.
And he said a handful. Right, exactly.
He missed 6 throws in a game. No one throws 100% in the NFL. Guys miss throws all the fucking time. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, that's so. And this is where the overanalyzation of Justin Fields has come into play throughout this entire process. NFL pros have talked about it during the draft. They talked about it. Like the draft experts, they were talking about it. And it's like there is no reason Justin Fields should have fallen this far. The process absolutely fucked him over because they just psychoanalyzed everything. And I was watching that video where Chris Sims is talking, and he's like, yeah, man, Justin Fields has the ball. I've seen him do this at times with the ball. And I'm like, what fucking video where the ball is like this? I'm like, where the fuck did you see that? What are you like? Are you watching it while he's like what are you talking about? I can't believe I just don't understand the process that he went through. And it felt like he would be a perfect fit for the Raiders organization, where they just they do things their way, and it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
Why no one else has those ratings. Like, again, I'm not saying that everyone should have the exact same, board. You don't need to have Trevor Lawrence at number 1, but when there is a consensus, and the way people do things now with analytics has caused it to become very, very mainline. Like, there is more reasons to show why so many people think something is, and I think this is even more in recent years. But then you it should be close, and I just don't know how you watch Zach Wilson playing high school defenses, and that's not a criticism against him. Oh, yeah, he can make all these fucking throws. Against who?
Yeah. Against
who? He plays the one good team last year that wasn't decimated by holdouts due to COVID, and they lose, and he does nothing in the game. I don't get it. And then people give him credit for that 2018 list that he has, where he had Lamar Jackson number 1. How the fuck do you watch Lamar Jackson's? You watch his mechanics, and you put him as number 1 as a thrower. You can't tell me that Lamar Jackson in college at Louisville looked like a better thrower of the football than both Trey Lance and Justin Fields as well. I don't believe that for a second.
I mean, he's now, granted, he's faster and I think a little more athletic than probably both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's throwing the
It's
football.
the same ball. No, that's what I mean. It's the same ballpark of player. I think it's mobile. It's if I have a running lane, I'm gonna take it. I'm athletic. I can run past you. You know what I mean? There are. Josh Allen was the same exact way. I don't want to make this a black quarterback thing, because Josh Allen was the same profile. He's going to one read, huge arm, but if he's fucking 6'5", 240, he's Cam Newton size, and he runs a 4.5, he's gonna run the ball. And it didn't seem to be an issue. So that's what I mean. I don't like the inconsistency of it. If you're down on one quarterback for one thing, how are you up on another one for the same exact thing? It doesn't make sense. And it's I've referenced boxing quite a bit on this podcast, but I think fight sports they do the best at almost emulating what life is. There's real adversity, because you can legitimately get hurt. You can legitimately die in the ring, right? There's these real life decisions you have to make in these 12 rounds. There's a lot of kids that come up, they look fast, they look strong, they're knocking everybody out, and everyone's like, oh, this is the kid that's going to beat Manny. This is the kid that's going to beat Floyd. This is the kid that's going to beat, Canelo. And I'm like, okay, let's look at the resume here. Let's who have they fought? I've seen it. The hand speed is there. The natural gifts are there. I'll give you that. You don't get to 18-0 and don't have a little something going for you.
Right.
But at a certain point, resume matters. It's who you did it against. To quote the great Loaded Lux, it's not how many fights you had, it's who you fought. So I can go 18-0 fighting 10-year-olds. But if I step in the ring with a pro 21-year-old, that's not going to translate. And that's what I try to tell people. It's it's the same thing in the NFL. Power in boxing doesn't mean anything at the elite level 9 times out of 10. Unless your heavyweights are different because they're 200 pounds, or if you land a flush punch, you can knock someone out, you're too big. At the smaller weight classes, your power doesn't mean anything anymore. They've all felt that same power. They're all sparring against that same power. They're acclimated to that power. You got to break your opponent down to get the knockout. It's the same thing with arm strength. Yeah. Your arm strength doesn't matter. You get to the elite level, everybody has a strong arm. Who did you use this strong arm against? How many tight window throws did you make? How were you able? What have you seen from Zach Wilson that shows he can utilize that strong arm?
Yeah, and again, to your point as well, what you were kind of talking about a little bit earlier was the jump throw. I don't know, man. That to me doesn't say that's a good thing to have. Why is that a positive? Yeah, he makes plays happen, but I'm sorry. We need to go back real quick and touch on the first line of the sentence that you mentioned with Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
The baseline.
Yeah.
His baseline. His absolute floor. His expectations.
Yeah.
From Zach Wilson is Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes. That is unreal to me. That is just, I don't, he goes from this nothing prospect quarterback in his first 2 seasons in college, doing nothing, throwing 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in a season. And then the next season, he plays no one in a season where it's been well documented that a lot of teams they played against were they had a lot of holdouts due to COVID. And he's literally playing, and not even kidding, high school level defenses. Yeah, he better put up numbers like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's this hype train that just came out of nowhere. I don't see it. I don't see it from him. And to say that the floor is Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, it's insane.
Get the fuck out of here.
And you know what? This is really my last thought on the issue, because to your point, you're correct. Not everyone has to have the same rankings. Me and you didn't have the same rankings. I've seen other people not have the same rankings, but at a certain point, there's like criteria for rankings. You know what I mean? And like what you saw from Zach Wilson, nothing that he could have done, not could have. If he did threw 60 touchdowns, no picks or something, even against the competition, you're like, all right, something's got to fucking give here. But like, how can you rank someone above 2 of the most experienced starters coming out of college into this draft in Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields? I get, I was a little bit higher on Trey Lance than other people, but like his film jumped off of the screen for me. I didn't see anything like that from Zach. Well, I legitimately didn't. I watched this film twice as much as I watched the other guys, because I was like, what are other people? What am I missing? What do they see that I don't see? And it's like, there has to be a criteria, of consistency as you're making these lists. I get it's, you can blend the film and the experience, but when neither of them match, and in my opinion, I just think it's asinine that you have this guy at number 1 over proven winners, over guys who, are putting up the best performances on the biggest stage. That's tough, man. That's tough. Yeah. This isn't Cardale Jones. We knew what we had in that. We always did, right? It's like, it's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and just he didn't have a 2017 rookie ranking, and I just was looking at his mock draft.
He didn't have a rookie ranking.
He had Mitch as the first quarterback.
That's what I was just gonna say. He's tried to let himself off the hook, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I pulled up something to see what he thought of Mitch Trubisky in that draft. He had Patrick Mahomes going in the second round of that draft. He had Mitch Trubisky as the first off the board, number 5 to the Browns. He had the Browns trading up because they were nervous that the Titans were going to take Mitch Trubisky as the first quarterback. And he had Deshaun Watson going to the Jaguars at 31 as a trade up. He didn't rank them. He didn't do what he's done with the 2018 and beyond and say, here are my actual, but he ranked them because he gave his mock draft. But he's tried to let himself off the hook and say, I faded on Trubisky in that draft, and I had him lower on the. No, you didn't. You're a fucking liar. You're an absolute liar. Yeah,
and I'm looking right now. Someone on Reddit had his rankings for the QBs, the rookie QBs, 2018. Lamar, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. Again, I don't know how you have Lamar Jackson number 1 with his mechanical issues, and you think he's just the greatest prospect of all time. And again, I don't think looking at that is that impressive. I really think that's kind of what people saw for the most part. Baker, I'd put Sam Darnold probably ahead of Josh Allen at the time. I'd probably say it was probably Lamar, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield. I've never been a Baker Mayfield fan, and I wasn't a super big believer in Josh Rosen either. Lamar Jackson, I just thought, again, I'm a personal believer that college stats do matter when it comes to the quarterback position. You can say what you want about wide receivers, running backs, things like that. If you can put up numbers at the quarterback position, more often than not, I would say, it's going to translate pretty well to the NFL, especially when you're at a big Power 5 program that you're playing against consistent good talent. Like those guys that you're playing against, if you're playing against really good competition, they're going to be in the NFL. That's why it's harder to find those FCS type players, Khalil Mack at Buffalo, like that type of stuff. It's harder for those guys to make that jump. 2019, he has Kyler Murray, Drew Lock, Dwayne Haskins, Ryan Finley, Jarrett Stidham, Daniel Jones, Clayton Thorson, Will Grier. Like, yeah, definitely not the best class to be coming out of. But Daniel Jones below Drew Lock, Ryan Finley, and Jarrett Stidham, that's not exactly the best look. I think Daniel Jones, didn't he like lead the league in throws over 20 yards this season? Like when he was healthy, Daniel Jones was playing pretty well.
He shouldn't be that far down the list. So that list that you cited, he actually made a change to that a week later. And he didn't have Lamar Jackson. He had Lamar Jackson at number 4. He shifted everything around. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, he's playing a narrative game. So, because someone put on a different Reddit thread, it says right here, this guy, No Raspberry 4700, if you're listening, which probably not you're a Patriots fan. For some reason, everyone cites his March 1st, 2018 rankings rather than the much less impressive rankings he had a few weeks later. Josh Allen, number 1. Josh Rosen, number 2, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, and Sam Darnold. So that wasn't even his final list. So he updates them throughout the offseason. I don't even know if this one was the final one, but this was another one that had Jackson at 4.
I don't know, man. It's just
so. Again, there doesn't seem to be any sort of consistency. He seems to fall in love with someone for a reason. And then, again, like, I think we're correct on that. Just turn on my light. The sun's going down, so it's getting dark in here. I think we're correct on that because how do you take someone's best game and maximize the few mistakes that he made in a game that Adrian Peterson broke the running record in a single game against the Bears. He got stuffed at the line a couple of times. Am I going to go and write an article and be like, yeah, fucking, a couple negative 2-yarders in there thrown in. I don't know if he's the best running back in the league. Like, what are we talking about right now? Yeah. Again, if he were to highlight things that actually need improvement, sure, I'm in. He didn't seem to really do that. He just tore down his best game. That's weird to me. That screams agenda to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's very strange.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what we were talking about, where it's if you're gonna, he's talking about Justin Fields and how in the biggest game of the season, which was one of the 4 college playoff games.
Yeah.
Or they're one of the 4 teams to play for a national title. They get to in the first round of that, of that tournament, he goes off for an incredible game and he tears that down. Meanwhile, I was talking about Zach Wilson at BYU, and he doesn't use any game examples because he knows it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
To anyone. If he's talking about, well, he, did this against San Diego State, he did this against Southern Alabama. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What is he going to do against NFL talent? Like this to me is the same argument, or this is to me is the same thing as Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Watson. It's the same exact thing to me. I'm not saying. Well, let me clarify, and I know you know this, Frank, but just for our listeners as well, I'm not saying that because of the race thing. Chris Sims, I don't think has that type of agenda based off of some of his other rankings. Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, both number ones, throughout the process. I'm not saying it's that. I'm saying strictly Mitch Trubisky rose up from one great year. Mm-hmm. And granted, Zach Wilson did start more. He played more games than Mitch Trubisky, but really it was one really good year that got him elevated to the number 2 pick in the draft. Whereas Justin Fields, it's almost like, well, we've seen so much great. What else can he do for me? It's like it almost looks too good where you're like, you have to look for those flaws. And if you look hard enough, yeah, he missed a handful of throws. He missed 6 throws in the game. No one else came out of that Ohio State game and was like, man, Justin Fields really missed some of those throws. Yeah. He missed 6 throws.
That's nuts. And you know what, too? I know I said that was my last, because you reminded me of one more thing that I did want to say. These rankings may very well wind up being correct, but it's the verbiage that you're using in this that's not you, Chris Sims. I know. That's bothersome. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's like you're tearing down one of the greatest games that I've seen from a quarterback. I wouldn't necessarily put it number 1, but it was a phenomenal game. While catapulting a kid based off what seems like just pure talent and sort of what you think he can translate over into the NFL. If you were to word it that way and say, you know what, this kid, I know he maybe didn't play the best defenses, but his film doesn't lie. I think he's got the arm. I think he's got the brain. I've seen this, and this, and that's why I have him number 1, because I think he's going to, transcend. I think he's going to be the best quarterback here. And you get to Justin Fields and say, I know he has the experience, but his footwork isn't the best, or, I don't know if he, the one read thing bothers me a little bit. Maybe he didn't show any improvement from year 1 to year 2 as a starter. Okay, I may disagree with you, but I say, okay, it's like the way he's wording it to tear down a great game and to not reference any games and just say, yeah, he can make 60-yard throws and he can jump off 2 feet and throw the ball. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, what? Yeah. You understand? Like, and because I don't want people 2 years down the road, if Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the league, and Zach Wilson's the best quarterback in the league, Justin Fields busts out and he's terrible. We don't get him the 5th-year option. Be like, look, he was right. Again, the rankings may be right. It's how he's wording this and just the inconsistency of having the nerve to talk about someone's, I guess, lack of fundamentals, and then highlight someone's lack of fundamentals and say it's a good thing. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's what
he's throwing sidearm. He's throwing this way. He's jumping.
He's off 2 feet. He can jump. Yeah, it's wild. So that's my take on it.
My biggest problem with Zach Wilson is with the way that he described it. 2 things. It's the lack of competition he played against, and I know and that's why. And if you're wondering why we haven't talked about Trey Lance in this as much as we probably could have as well, obviously with Justin Fields being a Bear, there's going to be that the Bears focus there, and we really wanted to kind of stick with Justin Fields, but that's why I'm not on him too much for where he has Trey Lance. Do I think Trey Lance is a better quarterback than Kellen Mond and Marcus Mariota? Yes, I do, of course, and they should be much higher in those rankings. But you can make that competition argument with Trey Lance as well. Now, granted, Trey Lance is playing at a proven FCS level team. Like North, it's nothing to sneeze at. They're one of the best. They win titles left and right. They're probably the best program in the FCS. So I think that does mean something. And we've seen a quarterback come from that program and win an MVP. Like, we've seen that. So we know Trey Lance, the competition there isn't necessarily a concern. BYU hasn't fucking proven anything. And to say the baseline is the baseline, not an Aaron Rodgers, and I looked at this as well, and he said in his 2017 mock draft write-up, he had Mahomes number 10 to the Buffalo Bills, and he said, and this might not have been the final one, I don't know, but he said that he's an Aaron Rodgers / Brett Favre type quarterback. If he had said that for Zach Wilson, I don't think I'd have as much of a problem with it, of saying he's like Patrick Mahomes. He's like Aaron Rodgers. He's that type of quarterback. My problem with it is to say that the baseline.
Yeah.
So to me, that's saying that Zach Wilson is going to be, if not number one, at least a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. That's a lofty expectation for a guy who did nothing in college.
I know, and that's the thing. Like, I love that you distinguish that, because I think that's what bothered me as well, and I didn't, I didn't think of it as like, you're not saying, oh, he's like that gunslinger type. He's got an arm. He's gonna, quick release or whatever. He's like, you're saying like this. You expect him to be that. That's why.
That's insane.
That's nuts. Especially from someone, just like you said, who hadn't played anybody. How can you say that? If it winds up being true, okay, but you can word it different. You can say this kid has the ceiling of Aaron Rodgers, but based on his, if you're going to tear, I keep, I guess bringing up a negative or like a flip side to it, because you did that with Justin Fields. You took his best game and said, go revisit that and look at the 6 throws he missed. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're going to do that, you can say on the other end, his ceiling could be Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, but his floor could be fucking, Jeff George, or even worse. It could be Drew Lock. You know what I mean? Like, you failed to do that. You evaluated this kid so high and set his baseline after playing, high school kids that are my size.
And if that is the case, if his baseline truly was Aaron Rodgers or Pat Mahomes, he's going number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, because other people see that. There is no way you are the only person that sees Zach Wilson's baseline as those 2 guys. No way. No fucking way. And again, if you want to say he's that type of player, and like you just, because if that's his baseline, what the fuck is his ceiling? Greatest of all time? He's Tom Brady, Peyton Manning level quarterback? Like, what the fuck are we talking? What does that mean?
Well, shit. If Patrick Mahomes stays healthy, he'll probably be in the GOAT number. So you're saying like he's saying his baseline is the GOAT. That's nuts. It's nuts. That's everything for me though, Jack.
For a BYU quarterback, Frank. And that's not even to start with the Kellen Mond stuff. I don't know where that is coming from, that love for Kellen Mond. This is a dude who played at Texas A&M in the Big 12, who that conference constantly gets criticized for its lack of competition, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Just look at his numbers. He gets worse every year at A&M. He plays worse and worse. And he's got the
weird hit,
that's what he's talking about with Justin Fields. He's saying that Justin Fields does. That's Kellen Mond.
Yeah,
that's what he does.
Jack. It's nuts.
Again, I don't want to get too crazy with it. It's one guy's rankings, But in the offseason, this is kind of the stuff we're going to be talking about. And I used to really love the NFL top 100 stuff, because I took it as a personal attack when Andrew Luck would like come in at like number 40, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then like 2 years later, I'm like, who fucking cares? Who gives a shit what people like? It doesn't matter. It doesn't impact anything in the league, and this won't. I'll forget about this by the time the season starts. But it's just like right now, when there's nothing else to talk about, I think it's noteworthy. I do.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to Justin Fields has a chip on his shoulder, and rightfully so, for a multitude of things. Whether it's the Ohio State stigma, the black quarterback stigma, things like this from Chris Sims. He's got a lot to prove. He's with an organization that, he has a shot to be the guy. We haven't had, the closest thing we've had to a real franchise quarterback was Jay Cutler in our lifetime. And we have to have a Jay Cutler episode. Maybe this offseason if there's nothing to do. Because we both have our takes on that. But yeah, I mean, this kid, he has a chance to be special, and I think he has I think he has a lot of motivation outside of just, because this is what he loves to do. So I'm excited about it. About it. I can't wait. Do we know who Chris Sims? Do we know who Chris Sims' favorite NFL franchise is?
I don't think so. Probably the Giants. 'Cause that's the one his dad played for.
So let's just say it's the Giants. Justin Fields.
The Bears do play the Giants
this year.
Yep.
Lights them up. 5 touchdowns, 450 yards, no picks, maybe a rushing touchdown. After the game, he just goes right to midfield and does the Kyrie Irving and just puts his cleat in the fucking Giant helmet at half. Are we away? I don't even know if we're away.
Frank, I believe that's a home game. It is a home game because I think it's week 6. It's week 17 now. But it's pretty interesting. I was taking a look at the Bears' schedule this week, or just yesterday, and I was looking at it's the first time I've ever seen this personally, where it's home away, home away, home away, all the way top to bottom.
That's interesting.
Very weird. And I do want to get into some stuff. Maybe we'll do this as during the summer or when the training camp comes along. Because I was talking with my dad, and he wants to throw money on when Justin Fields starts this year, and I think it'll happen a lot earlier. He thinks it'll happen later. I want to go through the Bears' schedule as well, Frank, because I think we need to do some investigating. I was taking a look yesterday, and I was getting kind of excited. I'm like, this isn't that hard of a schedule, and it's something that we had thought it might be a little bit more difficult. But I think that's going to be an episode I really want to do, is get into the Bears' schedule. But you brought something up just now. Were you talking about Kyrie Irving stomping on the Celtics logo? And I think that's an absolute fantastic transition into what we want to close today's show out with. NBA fans, Frank, losing their fucking minds, getting kicked out of games, getting banned from NBA stadiums left and right. I mean, it's like every day now. Every day there's a playoff game. You just almost expect a story where a fan is getting banned. What are your thoughts so far on what's been going on? Is there a favorite of yours? Is there one that you think maybe went too far? Give me kind of your breakdown of what's been going on.
I mean, they all went too far. It's entitlement. It's, buffoonery. It's any, type of word that describes someone who probably has the mindset of, well, I paid a ticket, so I pay your salary. I bought gear, so you're the reason. I'm the reason you're in business. It's dumb. Those are the people that don't look at athletes as humans. They're there to entertain, and because of that, in their head, they look at athletes. They look like they're above athletes because you're here to entertain me. Go out and play basketball. I can throw popcorn at you. I can spit at you. I can rush the court. It's nuts. Now, that bothers me even more so about it is that if that fan runs out onto the field and he gets punched in his fucking face because he gets in Dwight Howard's face or whoever, the athlete is the bad guy now.
Yeah.
That's crazy. In no world should, and this didn't happen, but we know that's what would happen. Should an athlete in any sport have any sort of reprimand or be looked at funny or have think pieces written about how they shouldn't have done this and done. You can't just charge. I have no idea what you have on you. I have no idea. I don't no idea if you're trying to hug me or trying to stab me. You can't take those types of chances. You know what I mean? But we know what would happen if that fan gets on the court, and an NBA player, in my opinion, rightfully swings on him or tackles him or whatever. And something has to happen. You can't. I don't know if it's. I don't have a solution necessarily. I don't know if it's you do what hockey does and you have the boards where fans can't get on the court. But yeah, I mean, you can't. And the thing that I'm seeing is fans have just been cooped up for so long and they don't know how to act anymore.
It's not an excuse.
That's not like, what are we talking about? Like, half human decency. You're spitting on people? Knicks fans?
In a pandemic.
In a pandemic? You know, we're throwing popcorn at people. We're rushing a court. Like, and then people have the nerve to get mad at Kyrie Irving for stomping on a fucking logo on a piece of wood with print on it. Like, what are we talking about? What are we doing here?
When he clearly has a grudge against the organization, and we know what he said about Boston and his feelings towards that organization. Like, my thing is, I'm actually still surprised. I think the board's idea is a great idea. First of all, most stadiums are hockey stadiums. That's mostly where hockey teams play anyways. So you already have them, and the NBA is really even if it's not for just fan safety or player safety in terms of, you know, got people running on the court or whatever, but like fan safety too. How many times have we seen a player dive into the fucking crowd? Like, the NBA is really the only sport that still has that type of interaction when it comes to fans. Like, it's pretty crazy that they've kept it, because I mean, I've been lucky enough to sit on courtside once in my life at a Bulls game, and it's fucking awesome. Like, it's so, you can't get any type of access like that any other sport, where you're literally right there. A guy is standing on the baseline to shoot a three, and he's right there. Like, it's crazy to me that the NBA hasn't done something to kind of like maybe wall that off a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I was a little surprised that guy got on the court as far as he did, and there was only really one guy of security, because like you said, you don't know if he has a knife. You don't know if he has a weapon of some sort. Like, you don't know. You'd like to think he won't, but you don't know. And while he's getting tackled, Dwight Howard is standing like right over him. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, fucking walk away. But what's the craziest thing to me, Frank, and I'll pass it back to you after this. I feel like after like the story comes out of the fan getting banned, they're season ticket holders, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, how do these people get this access and then do this type of shit? It's insane.
Now, I agree, and again, I think the hockey boards are a solution as well. Maybe the NBA likes the more intimate look, but at the end of the day, you still forget just rushing the court, because just a regular fan against a pro athlete, I like my chances with a pro athlete if it's a fisticuffs. But yeah, I mean, you got people getting spit on. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, when I was younger, during the pandemic, no less. Yeah,
that's what bothers me about the spitting the most. Well, it's like, yeah, spitting is bad, but come on, man.
Just the spitting itself bothers me a lot, because when I was a kid, I was taught that spitting is the worst kind of disrespect. Like, you would rather get slapped in the face or punched in the face than get spat on. Like, if you spit on somebody, you look at them as like scum of the earth. Like, they're just a part of the sidewalk. Like, you spit on the sidewalk, you spit on grass. Like, you know, and you know, throwing popcorn, and we've seen people throw drinks at it. It's like, that can't be normalized at all. So I get there's certain bans, but there has to be a different measure that comes into play. And, you know, maybe it was because they saw Nate Robinson get knocked out and they think they can take these guys. I promise you, regular fans, you aren't Jake Paul. You haven't been training for 3-4 years. You will get knocked the fuck out if you step up to any of these NBA or NFL or anyone athletes. You will get laid down.
And Frank, let me ask you a question. I'm just curious to see your thoughts on this. Do you think there's an element to what these fans are doing, especially with how consecutive it's been, where it's like kind of reflective of the way social media works now, where it's people just constantly trying to one-up each other on doing crazy shit here or there? Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like the dude running on the court, I feel like that's an example of it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you break down and get to the root of all the silly shit that's on film, you could tie it back to a lot of the social media attention that people get from doing dumb stuff. You know, it's so maybe it play, you know, that certainly plays a part into it. Again, I think because you can't generalize. It's not very many people who are doing it, but the people who are, they have some sort of entitlement. They think that this is something that they could and should do. Yeah. And it's like, how do we, even if it's only a small percentage of people, that should never exist in sports. The streaking shit, that's a little funny. You know, you're not out there to hurt anyone. You're going out there naked. You're doing something stupid. You're going to go to jail for a day or two. You're probably banned from the stadium. We're talking about like pure disrespect to another human being, throwing things, spitting. That isn't, you know, that's not, because again, I brought up like streaking because that's for social media attention too. Oh, I fucking went streaking. You saw my dick on TV. You know, where it got the uncensored on fucking Pornhub or whatever. I get it. It's funny. You can laugh, but they're not inherently disrespecting another human being on the football field. They're just running around and like dicking around. No pun intended. You're spitting on someone. You're throwing someone. You're rushing a court. You know, what are your intentions here, other than to be a huge dick to another person?
Yeah. And if your ego is that small, and Kevin Garnett, this is to him as well. Like the whole logo thing, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I mean, dudes are just so like Derrick Rose put it perfectly. The league is soft now. And I'm not necessarily, I don't think Derek meant it in the sense that like, oh, everyone should be fucking punching each other and you know, just constantly fighting. But I mean, dude, people just take everything so fucking seriously. Like the whole city of New York, like booing Trae Young for, you know, shushing. Like, come on, man. It's entertainment. Like,
I'm not gonna lie to you, Jack. I don't agree with that portion. That villain, we need a little bit of villainhood here.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm saying that the fans who are like taking it so fucking and like saying, "Oh fuck Trae Young," like who the fuck is he? It's like, dude, shut the hell up.
I think the fan commentary can get a little bit far, but I think of like, I mean, Pacers fans were saying that about Michael. We were saying that about LeBron. But I get what you're saying. That people can't take it too far where it becomes personal and you're doing a little too much. But like from a sports standpoint, if you're just like, fuck Trey Lance, you know what I mean? He's kicking our Trae Young. He's kicking my ass.
But that's what I'm saying. That's not how they're going at him though. They're making him out to be like this terrible human being. It's
right, of course. And that's what I mean. People can still take things like that too far. But to the logo standpoint, it's stupid. Like I remember when Terrell Owens scored a touchdown when he was on the Niners and ran to the star and threw it down. The greatest shit ever. The greatest shit ever. And it's like the players then like they ran and got him and they fought a little bit. But they weren't after the game like he fucking disrespected the Dallas Star and we don't do that here. Like, come on. Well, it's a logo. Who cares?
It's a logo.
It's a logo. It's hardwood. He stepped on hardwood. And the funny thing is, though, is that a camera just happened to catch that. He didn't like, come here, look. He just kind of stomped on it, smeared it, and kept going. He didn't make a big debacle out of it. He didn't make it a big deal. That felt to me like it was more for like self-gratitude, like, fuck these guys. It's just a little snub for me. It's not, I don't care who sees it. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He didn't even do the TO thing. He just went like, kind of like he was wiping off something off his shoe and kept going.
And KG's comments, oh, he stepped on Lucky. Stop. It's not a person. It's not a thing. And it's funny because this is what we were talking about on the last episode of the podcast, where we're like, Kyrie Irving basically, he's giving the Celtics fans a chance to prove that he's wrong. Yeah. And they just couldn't help themselves. I'm not saying they're, you know, I don't know if there was something said, but like, you know, Danny Ainge, oh, I've never heard that in my life as a Celtics fan. And then literally in the same press conference, like 10 minutes later, Marcus Smart's like, yeah, it kind of sucks having to play for fans who, you know, basically call you the N-word and then 2 seconds later are cheering.
We've heard some things out of Boston. Boston and Utah are the two we've heard quite a bit of, you know, the players saying that there were racial slurs or racial undertones towards things. Like, to say you've never heard of it, that's the whole I don't see color bullshit. It's the whole you're playing oblivious to things, and it's like, come on. We
But
can
then,
talk about issues without ignoring them. You don't have to ignore them. You're the GM, you're the owner, whatever he's player personnel. You can acknowledge it and say we do need to be better. It's unfortunate that it happens. I hate that happens, and we're going to strive to do better instead of saying I'm not. Dude, Bill Russell talked about it. You know what I mean? Like old school Celtics players have talked about the things they had to go through in Boston, and even current day put like it exists. Stop acting like it doesn't. It's not a reflection of you, Danny Ainge. No one said that you were racist or insinuated that you were at all. So like I feel like people take that and like internalize it and say, well, no, I've never. They're not saying
it's
you.
everyone in Boston.
You can't control. Yeah, and they're not even saying it's everybody in Boston. They're saying that this happened consistently here. That's what it is. Like people. I feel like people get so defensive because they feel like they're talking about you. That's not the case. But I also look at people a little funny when they do take it that way because it's like, okay, what are you hiding here that you took it that way? You know what I mean? Like I don't want to dig too deep, but well, that's kind of my outlook with that.
It's just funny to me that like the NBA, like these, like, you know, Derek is talking about how the league is so soft and their biggest star. I mean, it's hard not to think Derek is a little tongue in cheek when it comes to talking about LeBron there, when LeBron is, you know, I was laughing when he got hit in the eye and everyone's making jokes about how they expected LeBron to show up the next day with the eye patch, and I was cracking up at that. And you got that little matchup going there with him and Chris Paul, two of the biggest floppers in the NBA. And it's like, what are we talking about here, Derrick Rose, guy whose career was basically, you know, not ruined, but you know, the roadblock of LeBron James came into play there. What are we talking about here, Derrick Rose? So yeah. But other than that, yeah, I think the fan stuff it needs to stop. It's asinine. It was actually kind of I don't really you know, we've talked about this. I'm not the biggest, you know, Kyrie fan as a person. As a player, I think he's great. As a person, he can, you know, sometimes you like him. I think he does a lot for the, you know, for the game when it comes to mental illness type stuff. I think that's awesome. But it's some of the other stuff he talks about that I just think he gets into it. He thinks he's a little more self-important than he is. But it was kind of, I don't know. I did feel a little bit when he's like, we're not animals, man. Like, we're not in a zoo. And then Kevin Durant saying it afterwards as well. It's just like you feel that a little bit because, yeah, these guys are making millions of dollars, and it's easy to, you know, it's easy to not feel bad for them sometimes because they're playing a game for a living that I'm sure a lot of people wish they could do as their job. But at the end of the day, they are still people, and you have no right because you buy a ticket to act like that. You just don't.
And that's the whole thing. You have to have, like, you know, baseline respect for everybody. Unless they've disrespected you first, and I think that goes out the window. But it's like, I remember being a kid and like, man, like if I ever met an athlete, I'd be so starstruck. I always think that. And then as I got older, I met athletes, and they're legitimately just normal people. Like, they don't like wake up and like fucking, you know, they have a basketball or a baseball attached to their hip, and like they're like, you know, I don't know if you remember Charlie Tilson for the White Sox. He was on the big league squad for a little while. I like took him around. I used to work in Chicago public schools doing programming, and I took him around to all of the schools, kind of showed him around. The nicest dude, just a regular dude. I mean, I'm taking him all across the south and west side of Chicago. He's like, man, I've never been to this part of Chicago. This is really cool. And I'm telling him about the neighborhoods and doing this. Had a great discussion. He's asking me like, yeah, like, so do you have a girl? You get married? You got this? You got a family? And I asked, we're talking like just normal. You'd have thought we'd known each other for years. 2 hours into the car ride, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I even met people, you know, got to go to a behind the scenes Cubs thing, brought some kids there, got to hold the ring. The batting coach at the time, I'm blanking on his name. He's a big league manager now.
Dave Martinez.
And talking to him, nicest guy, talking regular. Hey kids, you know, talking to the kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? What, you know, you thinking about some of the high school kids? You thinking about a major yet for college? Just talking to him, asking me, what do you do? Oh, that's awesome. That's a great job, dude. And that's awesome. Like, normal people. You know, like, if you think because they're sad that what they earn, you know, all of a sudden they don't deserve the same respect that everyone else does. But that being said, that's sort of a way out as well, because I don't think they exclusively treat athletes like that. I think they treat everybody like that. They think of everyone as like lower. They have this this huge ego and this like, oh, no one's as good as me, and they can treat anyone. I guarantee you, those dudes, the dudes who spit on Trey Lance or tried to, I guarantee you they I keep saying Trey Lance, we're talking NFL, Trey Young. I guarantee you they're the type at a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts that has them remake the coffee 4 times. Like there's like a Venn diagram here. There's some parallels that a lot of these people have, and it's just it's unfortunate. But to take precautions, something has to be done. Something does. Like I guarantee you, a lot of the players love the intimacy of the game, the season ticket holders that they see all the time. But unfortunately, a couple of bad apples are going to spoil it, because you can't continue to have that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this was a really good conversation, both NFL and NBA wise. I think that'll pretty much do it for this episode of the Corked Up podcast with Jack Savio and Frank Naris. I definitely want to get into some NBA next week. Hopefully Nas can join us, and he's going to have some explaining to do about the Bucks and the Heat, because there
was no trouble to be had.
Yeah, there's going to be some trouble for him, because he probably would have criticized some of my takes as hot takes, and now we know who the real NBA expert is, Nas. And Frank, you can clip that and send it right to him, and we'll get into that next week. Like Frank said, and I definitely do want to get into some more of the NBA or the NFL schedule stuff, because I think it is going to be fun to talk about as after the draft, the schedule being out, and kind of getting to see where we think the team might be. I think it's always just fun to get some thoughts, and it doesn't have to be a hard prediction or anything like that, especially this time of the year. But again, it's June 1st. We may have some Aaron Rodgers news. We may have some Julio Jones news now that those cap numbers will go lower if trades do happen. So there'll be some fun stuff for us to get to. But I think you guys can put on your calendar NBA playoffs round 1 talk next week. Right, yep. Frankie?
100%. That's going to be guaranteed. Hopefully Nas can join us. Jackie, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Everyone listening, I appreciate you for making it this far. Like, share, subscribe. We're everywhere. Videos on YouTube. Audio is everywhere that it can be heard. If there is somewhere that you listen that it's not there, let me know. It's a simple click of a button. I'll get it up there. And review us everywhere as well. We got a few iTunes reviews, which is really cool. So keep doing that. Keep sharing. Keep telling everybody. As the offseason goes on, it'll be more and more football, just like Jack said. June 1 is here, so we're in a new league year. The Caps, are going down, the cap hits and such, so I fully expect there to be some bombs to be had. I'll talk to you next week, Jackie.
Talk to you later, Frankie. Have a good one. Thanks for listening, guys.